Hey, Natasha Neese here, author of Rise Up and Rock, A Front Woman's Journey. And today we're going to read chapter 9, Bonding and Cracking. We had to wait for the weather to warm up before we could play outside again. So all winter, Dominic, Mike, and I became a kind of COVID quarantine crew, an unspoken pact between us because people weren't supposed to be socializing at that time. But isolation felt unnatural and music was necessary. And so we gathered sometimes in our little trio bubble, sharing space in a time of a world on pause. A few days before Christmas, I was blessed to be able to fulfill a lifelong dream. I bought a beautiful home in the hills of Talent, the next town over from Ashland, and it became our haven. We partied there frequently, christening the space with music and laughter. Dominic lived just a few miles away, and Mike would make the 50-minute drive down from Grants Pass. We'd jam on trio songs, drink and smoke a little, vibe out, and then sink into the hot tub overlooking the city lights in the distance. We reminisced about high points and shows and talked about the future. It felt exciting and validating to me that we knew we could create magic together. It's a kind of happiness, this easy, unhurried rhythm. No show pressure, no band politics, just pure camaraderie. I'd always wanted that. A band that felt like family, a bond beyond friendship through collaboration and music. In my 20s, with my original rock band in North Carolina, Homegrown, we had been inseparable friends, creating, dreaming, believing together. And now, in this quiet winter stretch, it felt like maybe I had found something close. And our relationships evolved, as is inspired by creating music together. Mike and I acknowledged our mutual attraction, something simmering just beneath the surface. And Dominic and I grew even closer, deepening our friendship in a way that felt solid and true. I admitted the attraction between Mike and I that he could clearly see, and he confided in me about parts of his past that he was not proud of. In that vulnerability and fun, we bonded. But that was in the absence of the stage. Because when it was just us hanging out, no expectations, Dominic was warm, supportive, hilarious, one of my best friends and favorite people to be around. Moreover, it seemed we had a genuine appreciation for each other. It was only in the rehearsal and show environment that his shadow side would emerge like a switch flipping. And sure enough, on Valentine's Day, it flipped. Unable to play indoors due to COVID, and unable to play outdoors due to the cold, we decided to bring the music to our audience in the only way we could: a live stream rare trio show for Valentine's Day 2021. I wanted it to feel warm and intimate, and maybe even sexy in a way that might make people wonder. After all, that energy was authentically present and potentially intriguing. Most importantly, our performance was meant to be an offering of light in the darkness. I moved all the furniture out of my living room and set us up on stools in front of my big stone fireplace, the fire glowing behind us. We had chosen songs of love and longing, passion and devotion. I hired a professional film crew to live stream it, run by my friend Ed. And Randy was there too for sound support and good band fun. One of the songs I was most excited about was Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. But Dominic didn't want to do it. He insisted it wasn't romantic, that he didn't like it. And he pushed back hard. But for me, the song was drenched in a sense of longing and the ache of love that endures time and distance. The song wasn't about abandonment, it was about devotion, the sorrow of leaving with the promise of return. That's the way I heard it. It was one of the most emotionally charged, breathtakingly passionate songs in the Zeppelin catalog, and I wanted it in the set. But when we arrived for filming, it became clear that Dominic had never truly committed to learning it. He had avoided it, downplayed it, and when I asked him to push through and rehearse it before we began the live stream, he lost it. Fans were waiting in the ethers, and the crew, who was being paid by the hour, by me, was standing, waiting for us to play. Randy had seen this pre-show rehearsal conflict many times and just shook his head. Mike and I could only stare in silence, watching Dominic's sarcastic antics spiral so far out of control that the entire vibe teetered on the edge of potential cancellation. Oh God, you guys should have seen that. It was crazy. But Mike, usually passive, had had enough. He suddenly said, "Okay, over here," and decisively motioned for Dominic and I to meet him by the side door. In that tight place, we stood close together in a huddle, Mike nearly a foot taller than Dominic. There was no dramatic confrontation, just Mike's firm and steady presence in the face of Dominic's animated irrationality. He asked Dominic directly if we were going to have to cancel the live stream concert. Dominic was quiet. Mike then made a serious demand for professionalism and commitment to what we had all come here to do. First time I'd ever seen Mike take a strong leadership role during any conflict, and I was impressed and thankful. Any attempt I could have made would have been met with refusal and condescension, and I would have just started crying. Amidst the tension, Dominic agreed to try, and he played it well, as I knew he would. I was able to catalyze the shake-up into an authentic reverence for the depth of emotion we experience in romantic love and high-stakes relationships, both of which I was currently navigating. Between the songs, I spoke from this open-hearted vulnerability, sending love and encouragement out to our fans, knowing they could likely feel the tears welling up behind my eyes. Over time, Dominic's behavior became increasingly erratic. At one point, he began vehemently demanding money for new strings at every show. I was confused by this request and wondered if I would then be asked to supply new batteries for his pedals. But mostly, it was the principle. I had been covering all the band's expenses without asking for contributions from anyone. Every photo shoot, every videographer, every editing session, every ounce of promotion, every investment, I had funded it all. And more often than not, I was profiting less than the guys while doing all the work. On top of that, I was cooking for these guys at rehearsals, driving Dominic to and from shows so he could drink, and even paying him to create posters we'd designed together. I had poured so much of myself into the band, not just as its leader, but as the caretaker of its spirit. When I finally grew concerned about Dominic's drinking at shows, I once told him I couldn't give him a ride, and I made up an excuse, hoping to avoid his anger. But he still blew up at me. With dripping sarcasm, he snapped, "Excuse me, ma'am, I will take a ride. Thank you very much." And I'm proud to say I held my ground. But his unpredictable aggression toward me was slowly eroding my feelings of trust and safety. One night, after one of my regular Sunday dinners with my dear friend Rich, we had settled into the quiet warmth of the living room. He was in his chair, and I was on the floor, in front of the glowing fireplace, leaning on the hearth, looking up at him. Rich was a beautiful older man with deep wisdom and genuine care for me, a grounding presence in my life since I had met him years ago. That night, I shared with Rich a few of Dominic's recent texts. As Rich read them, his face twisted into a grimace. He looked at me with fire in his eyes and said with a steady fury, "This is not okay." His reaction landed hard. I had grown so used to managing Dominic's behavior that I hadn't fully grasped how unhealthy it had become. Seeing it reflected in Rich's eyes with such clarity and protectiveness was sobering. Something began to shift in me that night. A truth that had been long whispering now stood up and spoke. What you are tolerating isn't just exhausting, it's unacceptable. It was a scary realization, but also a necessary one. Then one day it all came to a head. The band was on a text thread discussing the set list for an upcoming show. Dominic refused to do another song I had chosen, and we got into a conversation about it. But when I finally surrendered and told him to pick another song to replace it, he wouldn't let it go. He kept escalating, ranting to the point of shocking irrationality. It was as if he took my olive branch and just started whipping me with it. Finally, I collapsed on the floor of my living room, tears streaming down my face, my body physically reacting to the stress when my phone rang. It was Mike. "How are you doing?" he asked. I hesitated, and then, maybe because I had nothing left in me to sugarcoat it, I told the truth. "I don't know how much more I can take. Do you know any other guitarists?" The answer came instantly. No pause, no uncertainty. "Yes, one of my best friends, Michael." I was stunned by how quickly he answered. I actually wasn't expecting an answer at all. I sat there, still reeling from the text thread. I was attached to Dominic, even though it was clear he was mistreating me. But that conversation with Mike gave me a glimpse of a path to a more peace and professionalism. I just had to be ready to take it.